Well, hello everyone. This is Rebecca Dallin, the Assistant Superintendent for Stormwater Quality here at the City of Oklahoma City. I would like to officially welcome everyone to the June edition of our 2022 monthly webinar series. We will begin the main presentations momentarily, so I want to provide some information to help enhance everyone's experience during the presentation today. In order to reduce background noise, we ask that everyone keep themselves muted during the presentation. If anyone has any questions during the presentation, feel free to type them into chat. Brooke Varick and I will be monitoring chat for questions, and we will have the industrial team answer as many questions as we have time for today. If anyone would like to receive a certificate of attendance for today's session, please send Heavenly Mendenhall an email to request it. And I'm going to put her email address into chat right now, so you'll have that handy. Each of the presentations in this webinar series will be available within a week or so after the webinar scheduled live date. It'll be on our website under Stormwater Workshops. The section where these webinars are posted is called the 2022 webinar series, towards the bottom of the screen on that Stormwater Workshop page. And today's session, of course, will be the June edition. I will post a link to that website where you can find those presentations toward the end of today's program. If anyone has any questions at this time, please feel free to type them into chat. But without further ado, I will begin a very short webinar series welcome presentation. Good afternoon and welcome to our monthly Stormwater Quality webinar series. We're excited to continue providing monthly opportunities to learn how you can help keep our local waterways clean. Remember, we're all downstream from someone else, so we all need to work together to protect our waterways. During this series, you will have the opportunity to hear from some of our own stormwater quality staff, as well as several guest speakers. This month's presentation will feature our Industrial Section Supervisor, Chris Stewart. The webinar series continues with additional topics from stormwater quality staff, a feature in September discussing the utilization of compost for erosion control, additional topics from the DEQ, and topics from wastewater utilities. We hope to see you each month, so be sure to tune in. As we've briefly mentioned, each of the presentations will be available online within a week or so after the presentation is aired live. It will be available on the workshop section of our Stormwater Quality website. I'll post a direct link to that page into chat toward the end of today's program. It seems that we're being rather ambitious this year since we've added virtual lunch and learns to the mix. You will need to register for each of these events separately. You can always reach out to me for more information. We will be sending out a registration announcement closer to each event date. Some of the vendors sponsoring these events have new products and tools that you may not have heard of before, so please be sure to tune into these presentations. You could learn something new, which might help streamline your stormwater protection practices. As always, anytime we provide information regarding specific vendors or products, it is not intended to be considered an endorsement. We provide the information to help you in your research to determine the best products and services that will benefit your own stormwater program. We have recorded each session thus far, and if anyone would like to view the recording, please send me an email so we can send you the Dropbox link. They are not available on our Oklahoma City website. Some of our presentations will be live and some will be pre-recorded. We do our best to provide as much detailed, accurate information as possible while also working with the presenter's strengths and their schedule. We live and work in a beautiful community here in Oklahoma City. For more information about stormwater, what we're up to, and local regulations, be sure to visit our website. Pause. Oh my goodness. Sorry, trying to get that second video pulled up. All right, today we're going to hear from the Industrial Section Supervisor, Chris Stewart. Chris has been the Stormwater Quality Industrial Section Supervisor since June of last year, so 1 whole year. Congratulations, Chris. Chris has spent the last 18 or so years as part of the Stormwater Quality team, working in the Household Hazardous Waste and Environmental sections before taking on the role of Industrial Section Supervisor. Chris helped establish the Oklahoma City's Household Hazardous Waste Collection Facility in 2003. He has a bachelor's degree in biological sciences from Oklahoma State University. Go Pokes! An interesting fact about Chris is that a few years ago he hiked across the Grand Canyon and back. So next time you see Chris, you'll have to ask him about that. Again, if anyone has any questions during today's presentation, please be sure to type them into chat and I will get the next presentation started.
Welcome, and thank you all for attending today's webinar over industrial inspections. I'm going to give you all a look into what to expect when one of our inspectors shows up at your facility or meets you at your job site. This presentation will hopefully make you feel more comfortable and make you better prepared when we show up at your facility to do your industrial inspection. Whether it's your fixed facility or at one of your work sites, we want to be there to help you have a successful industrial stormwater program. So I'd like to start off with a simple question that we get a lot, which is why? Why do I have a stormwater permit? Why are you here doing your inspection? And it's really basic. Our job is to make sure that the rainwater, the creeks, the streams around Oklahoma City are as clean as possible and stays as natural as possible. As I'm sure everybody understands, in the early histories of America, we were fairly ignorant as to how to manage our waste, whether it's waste from our homes or waste from our industries. The majority of that waste was just poured into the nearest water body. As our population grew, the industries became more complicated, those water bodies became more polluted. Eventually, that pollution created some serious environmental disasters. Those disasters led to the Clean Water Act, which is then developed into the requirements that we have to follow today to help manage the stormwater runoff at your facility. One of the first things I want to introduce is the understanding that we're not there to make your life harder. We want compliance. However, we want to help you obtain compliance with your permit with Oklahoma City. If our inspectors see areas of concern, we will address them with you and help you find solutions to your deficiencies. We are a team of knowledgeable stormwater inspectors that want to help you have a successful stormwater program. Later in this presentation, we will go over some of the more common deficiencies we find and some possible solutions. Now, I would like to introduce the inspectors for the Industrial Stormwater Quality Program. In the Northeast Zone is Kevin Bajat. Our Northwest Zone is currently open. The Southeast Zone is Artisha Hicks. The Southwest Zone is Philip Mee. And once again, I'm the Industrial Unit Supervisor, Chris Stewart. I have included in this presentation a current map of our industrial zones for Oklahoma City. If you need help identifying who your inspector is, be sure to reach out to myself or to our office at any time. We currently have 4 industrial stormwater quality management permits that we inspect. Our full industrial stormwater discharge permittees, our no exposure certification permittees, our Affidavit of No Discharge permittees, and our Cosmetic cleaning permittees. Each permit is a little bit different from the other. I will go over each in the following slides. I will start by going over our full industrial stormwater discharge permits. Currently, we inspect our full industrial stormwater discharge permittees twice a year, Your industrial stormwater discharge permit allows you to discharge stormwater into Oklahoma City's municipally separate storm sewer system per the EPA's Clean Water Act. Your permit is valid for 1 calendar year from the initial approval. We do send out reminders of your permit fees being due, however, you are responsible for keeping your payment current. We have set monthly schedules for each facility. We often schedule your inspection within the month it's due ahead of time. However, on occasion, we will make unannounced inspections. We try to be flexible, but we must do our job and verify all permit requirements are met at any point in time at your location. So, what can you do as an industrial stormwater discharge permittee to better prepare yourself and your facility for your industrial stormwater discharge inspection? I brought with us today Philip Mee, the Southwest Industrial Zone Inspector, to provide you with a few ideas on what you can do to prepare yourself and your facility.
Thank you, Chris. So first thing we ask to please make sure your permit fee is paid and current, plus to also have your current permit certificate available. Second is to make sure your SWIP is available for review. Also have it at your facility during normal business hours. Third, if you might not be there, have a second person at your location knowledgeable with your SWIP, where it is located, and how to provide a tour for the inspector. This person could be a member of your pollution prevention team. Fourth, have any specialized PPE available for your inspector. Our inspectors will have safety glasses, boots, vests, and helmets. If you have other special items, please have those available for your inspector.
Once we arrive on site to do your inspection, do not panic. Remember, we are not there to make your life harder. We are there to help you have a successful stormwater program. You can expect two parts of the inspection, and these can happen either way. First, we will go over all your paperwork, which includes verifying your notice of intent and your stormwater pollution prevention plan are current. We'll make sure your permit is in good standing and you have all the required documentation. I like to go over your stormwater pollution prevention plan and notice of intent first, so if this is my first time at your facility, or if you'd made any changes, then I can better understand what I'm looking at when I do my physical inspection of your property. Second, we'll do a physical inspection of your facility or complex to look at all your operations, best management practices, outfalls, chemical storage areas, trash receptacles, whether they're 55-gallon drums or large roll-offs, vehicle storage areas. Basically, we want to look at all items exposed to stormwater. Let's go over each one of those in a little more detail. When we review your paperwork, we want to see all documentation you have recorded since our last inspection. Many of you are transitioning to paperless record keeping, so be sure all appropriate records are uploaded to the software you are using. We will look at each of your quarterly visual monitoring and your routine and facility inspections forms. Any issues you might have found during those should be recorded on each respective form, and we will ask about and look to see if a corrective action report was created. When looking at your forms, we will check to see what you wrote, did you fill in all the blanks as required, and you complete it on time. If you miss a quarterly visual monitoring, you still must document that you missed it, why you missed it, and then you need to plan to make up the QVM the following quarter. Be sure to designate on your quarterly visual monitoring paperwork that it is a makeup quarterly visual monitoring for the respective quarter. Remember, the quarterly visual monitoring is to be done during normal business hours if it is safe. If there is a lot of lightning or tornado warning, please write that down as a reason why you are unable to complete your quarterly visual monitoring. If that rain event was the only one for the quarter, then you can note that on your report as to why you missed the quarterly visual monitoring. For your routine inspections, did you do those as required? Did you find any issues? Did you do one inspection during a rain event? If you found any issues, did you write a corrective action report? Did you do them within the time required per your stormwater pollution prevention plan? And then are you a sector that requires more frequent inspections per the OKRO5? For example, Sector M, automobile salvage yards must immediately inspect vehicles arriving at the site for leaks. Sector J has specific inspection requirements described in Part 11, Sector Specific Requirements J.6.3. Now, we always suggest using the Department of Environmental Quality forms or our forms, as they have all the required information you need to record your event. And then for those of you with a spill response plan, make sure you have all the items you mentioned on your site. Remember, your safety is important. Be aware of any adverse weather conditions prior to trying to obtain a quarterly visual monitoring or facility inspection. If you cannot do them safely, please document that information and then place this document into your stormwater pollution prevention plan so that it's available for your inspector during your next inspection. When we go over your stormwater pollution prevention plan in detail, we'll be looking through the following items. Has your stormwater pollution prevention team members changed or the duties they were assigned? Do you have any changes to your outfalls? Is the water you discharge into impaired, or if the impairment list has been updated, are you now discharging into impaired waters? We will look at your site map to make sure it's labeled correctly and your outfalls are identified. We will ask if you have added any outside storage areas, such as fuel tanks, drum storage, or moved your vehicle storage areas. Have you added any new roads where erosion might be an issue? Have you added any new products or activities at your location that need to be updated on your list of potential pollutants? Do you have any new locations where potential spills could happen, or did you have a spill since our last inspection? Are you required to do any sampling? If so, we would look through the analytical results to see if you had any fluent limits exceedances. And then what control measures do you have written in your stormwater pollution prevention plan? What schedule do you have written to maintain these control measures? We will verify that you are following all the monitoring requirements for your permit. If you need to do sector-specific, impaired waters, or other as assigned by the Department of Environmental Quality or the City of Oklahoma City, are you doing those properly and in a timely fashion? You want to look at your training log for the past year, and if applicable, your ACER. We'll look at your modification log for your stormwater pollution prevention plan. Did you record any corrective actions? And then we'll look at your DMR if applicable. We will go through your entire stormwater pollution prevention plan to make sure it has been filled in correctly and updated properly. Anything we see that needs to be corrected, we'll bring to your attention and walk you through how to fill this out properly if needed. On these next few slides, I would like to go over some of the quarterly visual monitoring requirements, just as a refresher for those of you listening today. Remember, you'll need to do 4 quarterly visual monitorings every year. If you miss one for a quarter, you'll need to try to do a makeup the following quarter. Be sure to sample at each outfall unless you have representative outfalls, which I'll be discussing in the next slide. You'll need to take your sample within the first 30 minutes of a qualifying rain event, and make sure that you record the specific information as listed in the OKRO5. We always suggest utilizing the DEQ's template forms, as they will have all the required information for your quarterly visual monitoring. You are requested to inspect your sample as soon as possible. However, you are required to wait 60 minutes for settled solids to fall out prior to recording that information. If you have representative outfalls, you need to make sure the following applies. Both or all outfalls must have substantially identical effluents, i.e. the runoff looks the same. You need to have similar industrial activities and control measures for each outfall. You should expect similar pollutants in the stormwater runoff. And you'll need to make sure that the coefficients of each outfall's drainage areas are the same. You'll need to rotate the sampling for each of the substantially identical outfalls on a regular basis. And if you find any issues at one outfall when doing your sampling, you need to address all outfalls with the similar control measures to correct the issues. If you're required to do effluent limitations sampling, you must sample all outfalls, have the analytical done once per year, and report via the EDMR by January 15th the following year. Please provide your MS4 with a copy of the results of your DMR. On this slide, you can find the specific stormwater effluent limitation guidelines listed in Table 1.1 of the OKRO5. Included is the 40 CFR section reference, as well as the multi-sector general permit sector and SIC code applicable to these regulated discharges. In the 2017 OKRO5, Table 7-2, you will find the required monitoring for effluent limits, including the regulated discharges, the specific reference for the effluent limitation, as well as the monitoring frequency and the sample type required for each sample. If you found that you had an exceedance, there are specific things you are required to do. You must conduct a follow-up monitoring within 30 calendar days or during the next qualifying rain event. The follow-up monitoring must be performed for all pollutants that exceeded the limitations, and you must continue to monitor at least quarterly or until your discharge is in compliance with the effluent limits. You must include the results of the follow-up monitoring in all reports. Within the borders of Oklahoma City is the Lake Thunderbird watershed. Lake Thunderbird has a TMDL that affects certain businesses in the southeast portion of Oklahoma City. If your facility falls under this category, you have been provided notification and should have modified your stormwater plan to address these TMDL requirements. Once a TMDL has been issued for an impaired water body, stormwater permittees are required to follow the guidelines, restrictions, and any other requirements that are listed in the TMDL document. Please note that TMDLs often include analytical monitoring requirements. Follow all the requirements for the TMDL and report the analytical results on an EDMR to the DEQ. You will also need to file a copy of the results in your stormwater pollution prevention plan and give a copy to your Oklahoma City Stormwater Quality Inspector. So Philip, what are some common issues you find while auditing the paperwork side of an industrial stormwater discharge permittee's inspection?
So sometimes I see the SWIP not being available and not filled out completely, the SWIP not updated accurately and regularly, missing quarter visual monitoring or routine inspection forms or incomplete. Remember, if you miss a quarter visual monitoring for one quarter, you still need to document why you missed. Keep that document in your SWIP and obtain a makeup sample in the next quarter if possible. Another issue is your quarter visual monitoring not having a start time for the rainfall. If you use the DEQ's templates, be sure to read through them prior to the rain event and make sure you know what information you need to complete the form properly. Also, not updating the SWIP or NOI signatures promptly if personnel has changed at the facility, and not having current proof of valid discharge permit.
On this slide, you'll find some of the solutions to the issues we sometimes find when doing the paperwork audit for your industrial stormwater discharge permit. We always suggest utilizing the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality's Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan template when filling out your stormwater pollution prevention plan. On the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality's website, there's also a template guide to help you fill out your paperwork. We suggest that you regularly review and update your stormwater pollution prevention plan. Perhaps you can set a calendar reminder to make sure you do that annually. We also suggest when you renew your permit, you place a copy of that permit into your stormwater pollution prevention plan book. That way it's available upon inspection. Once we have completed our paperwork audit, we will briefly visit to answer any questions that might not have been raised during the initial audit process. We will denote any deficiencies we found, and we will let you know of any possible new regulatory changes or procedural changes that might affect your facility. We will also provide you a sector-specific EPA guide to help with training or general knowledge over your specific industry. After we have completed our audit of your paperwork, we will be ready to do an inspection of your facility's physical property. We will want to walk the entire property to verify there are no unexpected materials being stored outside or spills in areas not expected. When we are walking your property, we want to look at your outfalls where we will check the general condition. Is there trash accumulated? Is there a sheen? Are there floatables in it or excessive sediment? We want to look at your BMPs listed in your stormwater pollution prevention plan and make sure they're in working order. In addition to that, we'll be looking at your chemical storage areas. Are your fuel tanks leak-free? How does the ground around your facility look? Are there some signs of spilled materials around your facility? Do you have any erosion issues that need to be addressed? Do you have BMPs to control any floatable or blowable waste at your site, like fencing or a cleaning schedule to address any on-site trash? Are your trash cans or roll-offs covered? Do you have any signs of leaks around your equipment or vehicle storage areas? Do you do your own maintenance of your vehicles or equipment? And then you have the correct equipment to capture any fluids while doing the maintenance. Do you have any bulk storage tanks or product lines exposed to the elements? Are there any signs of drips or spills in those areas? Are your material storage piles maintained to eliminate any possible runoff of that material? Do you have any old, deteriorated containers or drums lying around your facility that would allow rainwater to get into them, possibly contaminating that rainwater? Do you have some sector-specific requirements that we need to verify? When we do a walk around, we will also suggest some possible BMPs for your site. We do want to look at your spill kits to make sure they are stocked and located where your map says they should be. We will also ask if you do any cosmetic cleaning on site. And if you did not get a chance to attend our most recent workshop, please get with your inspector as one presentation covers some possible BMPs you might be able to utilize at your facility. So Artisha, what are some common issues found while conducting an inspection of the outside of a facility or complex?
Trash receptacles not covered or missing the drainage plugs. Oil stains or leaking equipment or spills. Greasy equipment left outside in the rain, not on pallets. Roll-offs that aren't covered and that collect rain Other products such as waste drums, buckets, uh, just anything that is left out that can collect rain that's not covered or has a cap to it. Lots of debris left around sites, such as pieces of wood pallets, plastic, paper, all of that stuff we look for and would like for it to be cleaned up, and erosion issues if they have any.
Some fixes to the issues we just discussed are to make sure you cover all trash receptacles. There are a variety of products available that you can utilize to cover your containers. Make sure you clean up all oil stains and oily areas immediately and dispose of that material properly. Cover all dirty equipment when possible to make sure it's not exposed to any stormwater. For your debris on the ground, schedule a facility cleanup day that picks up all the loose, floatable, or blowable materials. Be sure to cover or properly dispose of all empty containers at your facility. Make sure you cover all open roll-offs when not in use to reduce the collection of stormwater. Perhaps you could install some permanent coverage over your drum storage area. And then be sure to address any erosion issues that you discover while doing your normal facility routine inspections. At the end of our inspection, we will either pass your facility or designate your facility as corrections needed. Corrections needed means you would have specific items that we will discuss and provide written notice that they need to be corrected within 10 business days. At the end of the 10 business days, we will initiate another inspection to verify if these items that need to be addressed have been corrected. At that point, we will assign a pass to your facility. If your facility does not pass during the normal scheduled inspection, a reinspection fee will be applied to your permit for our required follow-up inspection. If you receive a corrections needed inspection, we will be very specific as to what needs to be corrected before our next inspection. If you are unsure as to what areas need to be corrected at the end of your inspection, make sure you visit with your inspector prior to their leaving your site. Our inspectors can either complete your audit digitally, where all documentation is recorded directly on the computer, or we can use a paper form to complete our audit. Our audit checklist is not an all-inclusive list, however, they do highlight the main areas we want to review. At the end of the audit, we will provide you with a proper copy of the audit if we record the information on one of our paper forms if requested, or we will be emailing you a copy of the audit. Remember, we are here to help your facility gain compliance with your permit. We want to educate you on all the requirements and provide you with all the necessary information to make your stormwater program successful going forward. No exposure exclusion information can be found in the 2017 OKRO5 1.14, which references 40 CFR 122.26G. You are still subject to inspections, however, you no longer are required to have an industrial stormwater discharge permit upon submission of a complete and accurate no exposure certification form. If your facility qualifies for a no exposure certification, then you are given a 5-year exemption from obtaining an industrial stormwater discharge permit. We will inspect your site at least every 5 years, and you must follow some very specific restrictions to qualify for this exemption. This exemption is revocable within the 5 years time frame. If we decide to do a random inspection and find issues at your site, we could revoke your exemption and require you to obtain an industrial stormwater discharge permit. More information from the EPA's regulations can be found at 40 CFR 122.26G. To qualify for this exemption, You must be able to answer 11 specific questions. All answers to the questions must be no, one yes, and you do not qualify for the exemption. All these questions revolve around what you have at your site that is exposed to rainwater. On this slide, you will find the exemption statement that you must read and answer the questions, then sign the certification verifying your answers. Remember, all answers to these questions must be no. If you have any doubt or concerns about answering a question no, please get with your inspector. During your inspection, we'll obtain a new certification for your location if one has not already been submitted. You will not have any additional inspection paperwork as you are exempt from the normal regulations for an industrial stormwater permit. We will verify, however, that you still qualify by visually inspecting your facility for the 11 items that you must meet to continue to qualify for a no exposure exemption. If you meet these criteria, then our inspection is complete. If you do not, depending upon the infraction, we will request that you correct these deficiencies in order to continue to qualifying for your no exposure certification, or ask you to obtain an industrial stormwater discharge permit. We will clarify any possible regulatory changes to this exemption. Many times we're explaining to new employees what we do and why we're asking for this document, as it has been 5 years since our last visit. We're always here to help and glad to answer any questions at any time. So Articia, what are some common issues you find when doing the no exposure certification inspections?
What I find mostly is the paperwork is not completely filled out. The back page is not signed. Sometimes they don't put the latitude and longitude on the form. Non-qualifying items being stored outside. Open dumpsters are dumpsters that aren't plugged, and signs of spill materials outside the facilities.
Next, I will be covering our Affidavit of No Discharge permits. We no longer approve of Affidavit of No Discharge permits. However, we do have some existing facilities that still have this type of permit. To have qualified for this permit, your site must not have any stormwater discharge. To qualify for an Affidavit of No Discharge, you must answer the 4 questions on the affidavit. All must be answered no, and you must have completed a water balance calculation to verify no stormwater will be discharged from your facility during a storm event. So what does this mean exactly? In a nutshell, this affidavit must be resubmitted every 5 years. You cannot have any discharges of stormwater from your site. Any discharges of stormwater could be a violation of the EPA's Clean Water Act. During your inspection, we require you to recertify your affidavit of no discharge. We will complete a visual inspection of your facility to verify there are no signs of stormwater leaving your facility, and we will clarify with you any possible changes to your location or any regulations. Overall, it is very similar to a no exposure certification, and the inspection itself is quicker than an industrial stormwater discharge permit inspection. Finally, the last permit I will go over today is our cosmetic cleaning permit. The City of Oklahoma City requires any person or business who will be performing any cosmetic cleaning within the City of Oklahoma City's city limits to obtain a cosmetic cleaning permit. To be clear, your business or residence does not have to be within Oklahoma City city limits. Any work you perform within the city limits requires yourself or your company to obtain a cosmetic cleaning permit. To obtain a cosmetic cleaning permit, you are required to do a self-inspection prior to receiving your permit. We will also do an in-person inspection where we will verify you have a valid permit available in each vehicle or at your facilities if it's a fixed location. We will inspect your equipment to verify everything is in working order, and we will verify if you will be using the water recovery system or a filtration system. We will look to see if you have training for all your employees, and we will make sure that you are able to answer all 11 questions on your self-inspection form. As long as all items are in place and in good condition, we will pass your inspections. Any items we find deficient could result in a corrections needed status and result in a reinspection fee. So Philip, what are some of the common issues you find when doing a cosmetic cleaning permit inspection?
So sometimes we find that our permittees not having the permit at their location or in their vehicles. We find missing or damaged filter booms that will not perform to expectation. We also see signs of leaking equipment connections and frayed or dry rotted damaged hoses. Also, we find that the permit numbers are either not on the vehicle, the trailer, or the equipment being used for the cosmetic cleaning.
Here are some simple solutions to some of the common issues we find when doing your cosmetic cleaning permit. Make sure you place a permit in each vehicle at the time of your permit renewal. If you find leaking or damaged equipment, be sure to replace that or repair that as soon as possible. And then we suggest that after each use, you inspect your booms and make sure you replace those as needed. For this last portion of our presentation, I would like to show you some examples of areas that could use improvement and some examples of good BMPs. In this picture, you can see some spilled areas right underneath a fuel tank. We would suggest they lay down drip pads or use a drip pan to control any leaks coming from that vehicle. On this slide, you could see signs of lots of leaking containers. We would ask the permittee to clean up all the oil contaminated soil to dispose of properly, and then put these containers in secondary containment areas to control any leaks or spills. On this slide, the plastic tank has its top cut out, which would allow for rainwater to enter the tank, possibly getting contaminated. We'd ask that any open containers are covered with a tarp or plastic to prevent rainwater from getting into those containers. On these next slides, I'll be showing some good examples of BMPs we found at permittee sites. Here is a good example of drums being covered to prevent rainwater from getting contaminated on the lid. However, we would ask that they put these on pallets to get the containers off the ground to reduce the contact with any rainwater running across the surface of the ground. Here is an example of those storage totes being covered to prevent any rainwater from getting contaminated from open containers. As you can see here, this is what I would consider some best management practices when it comes to storing containers. All containers are inside an area which limits the amount of rainfall that might get contaminated from the containers. The containers are up off the ground to reduce any contact with rainwater flowing across the ground. When possible, make sure you utilize the best management practices available at your facility for storing of your containers. Well, that wraps up our overview of what you can expect during a stormwater permit inspection. I hope you found this presentation helpful, and at this time, I will end the pre-recorded portion and hand it back over to Brooke and Rebecca for any questions. Thank you and have a great day.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris, for that great presentation. I think Chris had joined us today while he's away on vacation. I don't see any questions. So at this time, I think we will go ahead and let Brooke share her screen and provide a little bit of information. But if anyone does have any questions, feel free to type those into chat at any time.
Thank you, Rebecca. I am sharing now. Can you see my presentation screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Okay, so we are going to go through a couple outreach highlights for the month and for the past month and just kind of catch up because I wasn't at the last webinar. If it will progress. There we go. Okay, so we did hold the Rain Barrel Pickup event in May, and we had a record turnout for 2022. We ended up selling a total of 547 rain barrels to 398 residents, almost 400 people, just in Oklahoma City. For the entire metro, for Yukon, Mustang, Edmond, Midwest City, Norman, Moore, there were over 1,100 rain barrels handed out this year for 2022. So those are some great numbers. Our 2023 event dates will be determined later this fall. So once we have those dates, we'll let you know. But in the meantime, if you missed the sale and you want one, upcycleproducts.com still has some online retail partners available. The cost of the rain barrels are more because you have to pay for shipping, but it does ship directly to your house. So if you missed it, you can always check out Upcycle online and their retail partners. For the special collection that happened on April 2nd, and we had a great turnout from our residents. Our 2022 collection totals, we had 539 residents come through and drop off either tires, ammunition, medication, or computers, or maybe all of the above. We ended up with over 135,000 pounds of tires this year, 750 pounds of ammunition, over 625 pounds of medication, and then over 1,600 pounds of computers. So it was a great turnout. We collected a lot of waste, and we like getting it out of the community. Just a reminder, if your organization is looking for a volunteer opportunity to get your business involved in, we do have 3 volunteer opportunities. The first is our Adopt a City Street program, and this is a program where groups adopt sections of road and perform regular litter cleanup events. Our Waterway Clean Sweep program is a litter cleanup program for Oklahoma City waterways, rivers, creeks, just anything around the area. And then our Curbs to Creeks program is a storm drain marking program. This program helps educate that stormwater flows directly to our waterways and it is not treated. So that's a really important program as well. And I'll go through each of these just a little bit further and give you a little more information. For Adopt a City Street, some of the requirements is going to require a 1-mile section of road inside Oklahoma City limits. It is a 2-year commitment, and it's required to have a minimum of 4 cleanups per year. For 2021, we had 734 volunteers participate in 57 litter cleanup events, and they collected 641 bags of trash. So that was an amazing accomplishment. For our waterway protection programs, the Waterway Clean Sweep, again, that's going to be cleaning up litter and debris from waterways around OKC. You can see in the picture in this slide, we have a Waterway Clean Sweep going on. You can see all of the trash accumulation in the river that people are working on removing and working together to get that cleaned up. So this is a really effective and motivating task for people to do. They really come in and they feel successful that they made a difference. So there are a couple different ways to schedule a waterway cleanup. You can either join a pre-scheduled cleanup event, or you can create your own cleanup event for your business. And we can work to select a date and a location for your group. For Curbs to Creeks, that is the storm drain marking program. And all you have to do for that one is check out a storm drain marking kit, and we will give you a map of storm drains located near you, and you'll go out on your own time and be able to mark the storm drains around your area. And then if you have any additional questions or have questions about the volunteer opportunities, feel free to email me or give me a call and I can answer any questions. And at this time, I will turn it back over to Rebecca. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brooke. Gosh, we sure were busy this summer. A lot of stuff going on, or spring and summer, I guess I should say. Yeah, good stuff. Thanks again, Brooke. So we did have 2 questions pop in. I'll go ahead and read those out and the answers to the group in case you haven't had a chance to look at the chat. Wayne asks, do we have many A&D permit authorizations? And I answered Wayne, who is with the DEQ, by the way, for those of you who don't know. I answered Wayne saying, I believe we have 7 or 8 of those A&D permits left. We are kind of phasing that out. So we're just letting those naturally fade away. And then Bravis asks, will you be sending out the stormwater inspection PowerPoint? And we will be posting the recording to the website within a week or so, and I will be popping that link into to our chat shortly. So as a reminder, if anyone would like to receive a certificate of attendance for today's presentation, please send Heavenly an email to request it. I've put her email address into chat again. We do ask that you don't request certificates in chat. Do send Heavenly an email, because we may or may not have your email address linked to your username on Teams. So if you can send Heavenly an email to request that, we should be able to get those certificates out this week. And as I've mentioned, a recording of today's presentation will soon be available on our website. And I'm going to post that link into chat right now. So yeah, I think that's everything. We'll be hanging out here for just a few minutes in case someone has any questions. Thank you all for attending today's session. We hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. We'll see you next month on July 20th at 1 p.m. for the next installment in the Stormwater webinar series. The presentation will be provided by Monica Walls, our construction section supervisor, and she will be covering what to expect in an Oklahoma City construction stormwater inspection. I hope everyone has a great afternoon. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you next time.